Hey everyone, welcome. This is Take the Lead, Change the Game, a podcast for women leaders looking to deepen their knowledge and skills and find enjoyment in the process. We're powered by Safra Leadership. Safra Leadership is a cohort-based coaching experience designed to fuel courage and ignite impact among women professionals. I'm Lindsay Goldford Gray, and I'm here in person with my co-host, Mindy Gulati, and we are the co-founders of Safra Leadership. Together, we bring a blend of leadership coaching, strategy, and lived experience to help women navigate challenges, seize opportunities, and lead with confidence. Hello.
Hello. Nice to be in person with you. And just to be clear, Lindsay and I did not plan our outfits today.
I know.
But yeah, we are twinning.
It's like the same shade of blue, too. We are definitely twinning. We are actually here at the Austin Bars Hilgers House because we are about to present a little bit later on women in power, status, and influence, which is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, we're excited for that. So today with you all, we're going to explore why we should take some time to reflect on what we want to leave behind. So a lot of times, January starts, people have their resolutions, their goals, but what we often forget to do is to think about what we want to leave behind, things, habits, tendencies, mindsets from last year. Maybe even people, relationships that we want to leave behind. And so today we're going to talk about why this is important and why it's important to spend a little time thinking about what you're leaving behind, set some intentions. And also we're going to give you some frameworks to think about doing that.
Yeah, awesome.
And what I would say is it's important for everyone who's listening to just take a moment and think about your goals that you have, but go back and say, what about these goals? What would hold me back from achieving these goals from last year?
Yeah.
The idea is that growing and goal setting and achieving things isn't just about adding things and trying new things. It's also about leaving stuff behind, subtracting, taking things off of your mindset or your actual plate. And I'd love to just sort of open it and ask you, Lindsay, what are you going to leave behind from 2025? What have you been thinking about?
Oh, yeah. So I would say the biggest thing I'm going to leave behind in 2025 is actually some imposter syndrome. And by that, I mean, I have just sort of started my coaching and advising business in the last couple of years. And I think I was holding on to I haven't been doing this for 10 years. And so, what if people don't take me seriously, or what if I'm not good? And I think I'm finally at the place where I'm like, oh yeah, I have something to offer and I know who I am and I'm firmly grounded in that. And so I'm going to leave that mindset behind.
I love it. It's so important. For me, what I'm going to leave behind is, as an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur since 2010 with my law firm and now consulting firm the last 10 years. And there is a tendency to go into scarcity mindset.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it's conscious and sometimes a lot of times it's very unconscious. And so I really want to leave that behind this year. I want to move really into always having the abundance mindset up front, but knowing I'm not going to be perfect, but I want to leave that behind. I have proven myself for the last, 16 years of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I don't need to always be, oh my gosh, where is this going to come from?
Yeah.
Will it come?
Yeah.
It's going to come. And so I'm moving much more into that abundance mindset.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So let's talk about the cost of carrying what doesn't serve us. So if we take our baggage in all of its glory and bring it with us, what happens? So, a big thing is energy drain, right? I mean, let's just talk about our examples. Like if I'm always second guessing myself, or if you're always second guessing, where the next client is going to come from, or will the work materialize, that's an energy suck, and it drains our energy. It drains our confidence.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we're in our 40s and stubbornness comes out in full force, I think, about now. And this whole this is just how I am mindset. Yeah. Of course, then growth is significantly stifled. Learning is significantly stifled.
Yeah.
And I definitely think one of the really amazing things about being an advisor and a coach and even a lawyer is we're constantly learning and growing.
Yeah.
Never the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, our hanging on to old versions of ourselves can limit our decision-making, our creativity, our relationships, certainly relationships, which I feel like is a whole separate podcast. And then thinking about like just being so loyal to the past and not thinking about who our future selves are, because they are in fact different people always, 100% of the time.
Yeah, and I want to add, sort of to all these things you've brought up, and this energy is there's a lot written about, like, you have to get rid of old things to make room for new things. I think it's so important. I mean, it can be down to like your house, like organizing your house, like getting rid of old things to make way for new things. And as I've shifted into that over the last few years, I feel like it's so true. It's like when you do remove old things that either don't serve you well anymore, or things that get in your way, like, and it may be tangible things like a messy closet, or it could be, like messy mindset, you do open the door to new things. And so I really encourage you to think about that, because, whether it's kind of however mindset you put to this, I do think there is an energy that exists out there where if you let go of the things that don't serve you, you will see new things come in. I mean, you can only take in so much. You only have enough energy for so much. So I'm excited to think about how to redirect it, and spend a little time on the common categories.
Yeah. First, really quick, just to piggyback off of that, there's this concept of your best yes, right? And there literally is only space and time for so many things. And I've heard it said, time is the only resource that we can never get back.
Yeah.
And so thinking about like taking meetings that maybe are not helpful and suck up time, or, all kinds of different things, letting go really can leave actual space for things, opportunities that if they came along and you had just filled the plate, you don't have time for anymore.
Well, and I heard a general counsel, an attorney I work with, he would say often, like, what is your highest and best use? And I love that, because it's like, that means you're not taking the meetings and you're not doing anything. Like, what's your highest and best use? And I think if we frame it like that, we have to let go of things, because not everything is our highest and best use at the moment. And it doesn't mean we don't have to do stuff that is not always our highest and best use. But I like that framing. It's always stuck with me. I heard that years and years ago. So let's talk about like the common categories. So when you're all thinking about what to leave behind, there's lots of ways to think about it, but I think it's nice to organize it into some categories. So the first one we'll start with is mindsets. So think about what mindsets you want to leave behind. Now, Lindsay and I are both leaving behind a mindset. So I'm really leaving behind scarcity. She's leaving behind imposter syndrome. There's a lot of things you can leave behind, people pleasing, perfectionism. And we've talked about perfectionism on our podcast. This sense of urgency, like you have to get it done right now. Also the mindset of, I think one of the roadblocks I hear people all the time is, when this happens, then I will do this thing. Instead of just doing the thing. And it kind of goes into perfectionism, but it goes into a lot of things. So I think, as you're thinking about what am I leaving behind, think about what mindsets no longer serve you or really get in your way of progress. Tell us another category.
So the next one, and these are all going to be interrelated, but it's sort of this role and identity. So, examples of that is I'm the fixer, I'm the overachiever, I'm the quiet one, I'm the always available one. I mean, and I think one thing that resonates with me is, having transitioned out of a founder role and a CEO role, that was a huge identity shift for me. And so having to let go of like, I'm no longer running an organization, or at least wasn't for a while, or I didn't have a big team anymore, those kinds of things, those roles can be really challenging to let go of. And especially for us women in familial and relational settings as well, it can be huge.
And we also want to look at like our habits. So what kind of habits do we want to let go? And there's great books about changing your habits. I like the book Atomic Habits. It's got some basic good tools, but we often have habits that really interfere with us and who we want to be. And these are things like overcommitting. And so it's okay to have open on your calendar. It's okay to not have every minute scheduled. A habit of doom scrolling and being on your phone too much. And years ago, I took email off my phone, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, honestly, but it's so helpful in my personal life because I have to be at a computer to check my email. I can't just be like on a walk with my kids or like,
Yeah.
I have to intentionally go check it. But that was a habit I had to let go of because it was interfering with my happiness and peace.
Yeah.
Saying yes by default or saying no by default depends on what your habit is.
Yeah.
If you always say no, that's a habit. If you always say yes, that's a habit also.
Yeah.
What about some other categories?
Yeah. I mean, relationship dynamics, right? And so, I once had someone describe it to me as like, you can get on train tracks and it's like, and there are triggers for us in our relationship, especially our close ones. And so really being mindful of like, ooh, I'm getting on the train tracks, or like this conversation is going to go exactly like the 276 conversations before it. And everybody knows it's not going to be great on the other side.
Yeah.
And so really being mindful of those and instituting some new practices in your relationship dynamics.
Yeah. And I would say at work, we have relationships at work. Yeah. And sometimes we get stuck in a category or we get stuck in a relationship with someone. It's okay to refresh it, try something new.
Yeah.
Actually, just yesterday, I had a client call and she needed to give feedback to her boss, who is an executive. And they have this relationship for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a different dynamic between them. And it's okay to let go of the 20-year history and say, hey, we've got to like renegotiate this. And I was telling her, like, how do you renegotiate a relationship at work?
It's so hard.
But you
it's
can
really
do it.
hard.
And that may be something you need to leave behind is your old tendencies with someone in the workplace.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm working with an organization right now where the organizational personality is very conflict avoidant.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be like nice and they view it as nice if nobody talks about anything that's challenging.
Yeah.
And so it's so painful.
It's so hard.
It's so hard. Yeah. But I really feel like we are now, 6 months in a place where everybody's nervous system is a little bit less on overdrive because we have done the hard work of learning how to talk about stuff.
And another category when you're thinking about what to let go of and leave behind is your definition of success. So maybe what worked for you in the past is not going to work for you going forward. So this could be like, do you need external validation, hustle and being busy as your sense of worth? A lot of people are like, I'm so busy. It's like, does that serve you? Does it serve you to be that busy anymore? And sort of old metrics that you have in your mind of winning. Like, when do you feel like you're winning? And one thing I'll say is that I had an interesting conversation like 2 years ago with a CEO who was my former client. We are like BFFs. And he and I were just saying, man, like, we don't want to hustle in the same way we used to.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, we're getting older. Like, this isn't the same hustle as when we're like 32, 33 years old. And it was such a good conversation because by just us talking about it, we were like, yeah, we need to let go of that. Like, we don't need to be at every event. Like, we have kids at a certain age that you can't. And we don't want to do it anymore. And we've established ourselves. We are well known.
Yeah.
Our reputation and status and credentials are out there. But it was interesting because both of us were really like, had a hard time leaving it behind.
Yeah.
Even though it really wasn't serving us and it's not what we wanted to do. And so there were so many negatives, but just leaving it in the past was really hard to do.
Yeah. When we're trying to think about how something serves us, or if something serves us, or if something doesn't serve us, let's talk about some ways that we can frame that and questions we can ask ourselves. So what's sort of a way that we can frame it?
Yeah. So I look at this as like an energy audit, and we've talked a little bit about energy. And I think you can ask yourself the question, what gives me energy? Like, what makes me feel alive and happy and joyful and like I've accomplished something at the end of the day? And then what drains me? And sometimes the things that drain you look good on paper, but they're really not. They don't give you any energy.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of very busy professionals, we do all the things out of obligation, but they're not giving us that good energy. And you have to be careful of what what your patterns are. Don't just take things in isolation. Like, really look at your patterns. Like, where do you spend your time? What do you get from that?
Yeah.
Like, when do you feel like? I mean, yesterday I was so pumped up yesterday. I can't even explain. I was like wired because I'm like in an entrepreneurial mode with my clients. I'm doing a lot of growth with my clients. My own company's growing. And that was so fun. That was like great energy. But you know why I had that energy is because I didn't over I didn't overly schedule myself where I
Yeah.
couldn't have that joy
Yeah.
of putting my energy to something
Yeah.
else. So
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I've realized in the last year in terms of energy drains for me is I call it cat herding,
Mhm.
where it's like, you know, as a leader and as a manager, like you delegate things and then everybody sets deadlines. I'm pretty intentional about that.
Yeah.
But then like oftentimes people just don't do them. And
Yeah.
then you're following up and trying to, you know, like
Mhm.
move things around and figure
Yeah.
out. And like, I really have had to let that go. One, by like saying no to certain projects where I know that's going to be reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also just being like, we've agreed to a deadline. You set it, you can meet it or
Yeah.
not. Like
Yeah.
it's not my, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
that was a huge thing that was draining so much of my energy.
Yeah. What's another framework for thinking about what to let go?
Yeah. So another way to think about this is, you know, your past self and your future self. And I like to think of this as seasons. So, you know, an example of my past self is that I had very small kids, right? And when you have kids that are ages, you know, 0 to 10, let's say, or like 0 through elementary school, your life looks really different than when your kids have middle and high school. And now I have 2 middle schoolers and life is really different. And so their needs are different, in some ways less demanding and in some ways more. And so my life can look very different. And I can say yes to certain things I couldn't say yes to before. And I want to say no to certain things, especially the emotionally draining stuff.
Yeah.
Because my kids need more of my emotions and maybe less of my time now.
Yeah. I like that because I think that you have to look at like what people in your life need from you, and it could be work too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is they need the time. Kids, when they're little, you got to be
Yeah.
there. Yeah, it's time. But as teenagers, it's not time.
Yeah.
It is it's that emotional commitment to helping them navigate their big emotions. They don't want you their time. Like they don't want to play a game with you all night, right? But they may need you for 5 minutes of a really intense situation.
Yeah.
But it's the same at work. As you grow as a leader, you may not need to give as much time to tasks.
Yeah.
But you need to give time to strategy.
Yes.
And strategy is often a lot hard. It's unstructured. It's hard.
Totally.
So you'll revert back to those, oh, I got to do my to-do list. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
You actually need to spend time on visioning and strategy and thinking. And that can often be very different flow and vibe.
100%. There's a lot of really good research out there about how unstructured time is just so critical for creativity and innovation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Another frame that you can use to figure out what you need to let go of is asking yourself, would I choose this again? So if you weren't already in the situation, would you opt in today? Yeah. This one will kick your entire butt because it is, believe me, I've been asking this question in workshops that I teach, and people like burst into tears because when you really think about like, if I weren't in this situation, would I stay? Would I keep doing this?
Yeah.
A lot of times the answer is no.
Yeah.
And that can be startling. And so be ready for this question. Yeah. Would I choose this again? If I weren't already in it, would I opt in? A lot of times your answer is going to be no, but that's okay. So sit with that and figure out what that means. And that means you're going to have to let certain things go. And I do this, and the emotions come because it is a really hard question, but this applies to lots of things, your habits, and I think when people get stuck in a bad routine and a bad habit, if you just say, would I do this if I wasn't already in it? You will say no, because you're like, no, this isn't a good for me. This isn't a good habit. Yeah. So be ready for that, but it's a good frame.
Yeah. And one thing I will say about all of this, especially as we're talking about letting things go, is grief is real and grief is important. Yeah. And, as you just said, let the emotions come. Like some of this, as you really dive into it, might get really heavy. Yeah. And I've certainly been there. And I think that making sure, again, unstructured time, the importance of that, so important. To just say like, I'm going to hold space for this, and I don't have to make this decision to, let this go right now, but I do need to have the space and time to say like, okay, I've got to put one foot in front of the other, but which direction am I walking in?
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say about in terms of framing, letting go and leaving things behind, I recently listened to this book called Tiny Experiments on audiobook, and there are some TED Talks as well by the author. But basically, I really liked the framing of this where, when we're thinking about doing something new or letting something go, think about it as a small scientific experiment. So what that means is you're doing something for a fixed period of time, right? Say, I'm going to do, I'll give our podcast as an example. Like we were going to do our podcast through the end of the year, through 20 episodes. And then just last week, we reevaluated and we said, okay, should we continue doing exactly what we're doing? Should we let it go or should we tweak it? And so we decided to get the podcast up on Spotify, which is just a slightly different medium, but that we really loved what we were doing and we were going to continue to grow it. And we hear from people, that are listening that they really enjoy it. And so that was an example of tweaking and then continuing on. And we gave ourselves another fixed amount of time to then reevaluate again. But like those kinds of things are really helpful framing. You don't have to white knuckle everything that you do and decide if it serves you or if it doesn't, but commit to a small fixed amount of time and then reevaluate it.
So if you say, I got to let this thing go, like say, I'm going to let it go for 2 months and I'm going to go back and see, like, did it make a difference in my life?
Or do I miss it?
And do I miss it? Or did it have an unintended consequence that I didn't anticipate and I better get back to that? Or is this the best thing that ever happened to me? So I am really letting it go. And so again, like in life, you got to be flexible. You got to be agile. You don't need to make like stark decisions. Not everything has to be framed like that. So I love that idea.
So we've talked about one thing each of us is leaving behind, sort of how to frame and how to think about these things. We'd really love for you all to create a release list. So what are some things that you think you may need to release? It's a hard exercise.
And the last thing I'll say is I did this exercise with a client at the end of 2024. And it was an engineering firm. And there were about 50, probably maybe 60 people on the call. And I can't tell you how much feedback then I got the next year, like all of 2025 of people like, just kind of randomly, we'd be in a meeting on something totally different. And they'd be like, do you remember you did that exercise with us? And I did let something go. And they'll tell, so if you spend some time thinking about this, it actually can be really, really life-changing.
Definitely.
And some of it's really easy and tied to work, and some of it's big monumental things. So take some time and think about this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, we're going to hop off so we can get ready for our presentation here in a few minutes, but have a great rest of your week and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.